بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. Tonight we're going to start the second class of the Kitab al-Siyam, the book of fasting. Before I forget though, next week, because I think time is going up this Sunday. So next week, class will be the same time. It'll be the same time, but so that'll be between Maghrib and Isha, after Maghrib next week. But it'll be the same time, inshallah. I think Maghrib next week is going to be like 7:10 or 7:15, something like that. So after we pray Maghrib, we'll start, inshallah. Tayyib. Tonight, we continue with Umdat al-Fiqh by Ibn Qudam. What's specific about this book again? Did we discuss that last week? The specifics of this book is that it's summarized, very direct and to the point. It's a beginner's level book. Ibn Qudam rahimahullah, he wrote in this area, dealing with these issues, he has 4 different books. This is the first book. So if we use for example, if we use the high school type of situation or college, this is the freshman, the first beginner's level book. Therefore, the way it's worded and directed is worded and directed like that on purpose. This is not an explanation of the book, but this is the metan, and the explanation is used if necessary. So this section, Bab al-Ahkam al-Muftirin fi Ramadan. This is the section of the people who are allowed to break fast on the month of Ramadan. The people who are allowed to break the fast on the month of Ramadan. We need to know first, what if a person breaks their fast on Ramadan without a valid excuse? What if a person breaks their fast on Ramadan without a valid excuse? It's sinful, Jade. They definitely have to make the day up. It's a sin, they have to make the day up. Dave, anything else? Kafara? They don't need a kafara. Depending on what broke it. Tayyib. When we say sinful, it's a little more than sinful. Tayyib. Breaking fast on Ramadan, meaning that a person doesn't fast. Or a person intentionally breaks their fast on Ramadan. Right? Without a valid excuse, is from the major sins. It's from the kaba'ir. It's from the major sins to break the fast on Ramadan without having a valid excuse. So this section here, what the author did, rahimahullah, is he categorized the people who have a valid excuse to break the fast into 4 categories. Inshallah makes it a little simple. It's simple. Inshallah, simplified. It's broken into 4 categories of people who are allowed to break the fast. He says, وَيُبَاحُ الْفِطْرُ فِي رَمَضَانِ لِأَرْبَعِ أَقْسَامٍ. The people who are allowed to break the fast, they have that pass, as we say, or the allowance to break the fast, is broken into 4 categories. أحدها المريض الذي يتضرر به والمسافر الذي له القصر. The first group are, number 1, the sick people, and their sickness is not a healable sickness, meaning they're going to constantly have that sickness on and on. It's not like, for example, a person get the flu, a week and a half, they back, right? This is I'm sorry, he didn't explain like that. I'm sorry, that's not how he explained it. That comes later. Here he says the murid alladhi yatadarraru bihi, the person that is sick, that if they fast, they're going to harm themselves by fasting based on them being sick. 2 different situations. That situation comes later. A person is sick, and if they fast, it's going to cause more harm to them. Everybody get it? That's not a terminal illness. That's not a sickness that can't be healed. There's a different situation. A person is sick, and if they fast, it's going to cause them more harm. It's going to harm them by fasting. Then this person, what? What does that mean? They don't have to fast. Can they fast? They can fast. But do they have to fast? No. Which person? The person that is sick, and that sickness is going to cause more harm if they were to fast. how would a person know that fasting is going to cause them more harm? Either A, they fast, they did the fast before and they noticed that it caused more harm, or B, possibly they might need to see a doctor. A doctor might give them advice, right? A doctor may give them advice that if you fast, how long is your fast? Your fast, if you do that, that might cause more harm based on your sickness. That's not for everybody. So it's not an open type of thing.
Does that mean that they can, like, are they supposed to at least eat the minimum? Like, for example, they need a certain amount of calories to sustain them.
I don't understand.
Okay, so in other words, sick person, if they fast, it will cause harm to them. That means they eat freely as if there was no Ramadan.
I'm with you. We're gonna get to that. That's coming, inshallah. Like, this is the first group. The sick person that if they fast is gonna cause more harm. And the musafir alladhi lahu al-qasr. And the person that's fasting, the person that is traveling, that is allowed to shorten the prayer. That's the second person in the first group. So the first group has two types of people in it, right? He says the musafir alladhi lahu al-qasr, the one that's traveling that is allowed to shorten the prayer. Like, is everybody traveling? Number one, is it permissible to shorten the prayer when we travel? What's the hukum? What is the ruling Islamically on shortening the prayer when we're traveling? Sunnah is recommended. Sunnah of the Prophet that if we travel with the conditions of traveling that we're not going to go into right now, that a person is allowed to shorten the prayers that can be shortened. And now the author says, for the one who's traveling, who is allowed to shorten the prayer. So who is the traveler who's traveling that's not allowed to shorten the prayer? Who's traveling? Who is a traveler that is not allowed to shorten the prayer? G, the one that's traveling for a short distance. Or somebody that's traveling to do something haram. Somebody that travels to do something haram that the Muslim is not supposed to be doing. Right? They go out of state and they say they're going out of state with the intent of doing something haram. Whatever it is, y'all. It don't have to be no specifics. Whatever it is that the person intends to go wherever they're going for and they're traveling, and the intent of that travel is to do haram, then that person is not allowed to shorten. That's why he says the traveler that is allowed to shorten the prayer. He says after that, فَالْفِطْرُ لَهُمَا أَفْضَلُ. He says, so in this case, it's better for those two people. Who are the two people? The sick person that what? Not just the sick person. The sick person that fasting is going to harm them if they fast. And the traveler who is allowed to shorten the prayer. He says, for those two people, it's better that they break the fast. It's better that they break the fast. Not that they have to break the fast. It's better they break the fast, he says. He says, وَعَلَيْهِمَا الْقَضَاءُ. And what they both have to do is make the day up. Right? Even if they have an excuse. They have an excuse for breaking their fast that day or that week. Right? Or those 4 days or 6 days, they have an excuse, but they still have to make the day up after Ramadan. He says, وَإِن صَامَ أَجْزَأَهُمَا. And if they do fast, even though they're sick, and even though it may cause more harm, and she chooses to fast anyway, if she does fast, it counts for her. If a person is traveling and they decide to fast while they're traveling, right? They said it's better that they shouldn't fast, but if they do fast anyway, then it counts. They don't have to make the day. Everybody clear? And the issue of the traveler fasting is an issue by itself, that this is not the place for that. The khilaf of what's better to fast while you're traveling or to break the fast while you're traveling. That's a discussion. But it is allowed for the traveler to fast.
So how would the person, you said you're not talking about a person with terminal illness, but you mentioned a person that's sick.
Yeah, that comes later.
Okay.
That coming later. I'm sorry, that comes later. So yeah, that's the first category. How many categories is it? Four. Four total, and the first section is 2. طيب. He says, وَالثَّانِي الْحَائِض وَالنُّفَسَاء. The second group is specific to the women. The woman on her menses and the woman who has postpartum bleeding. after she has the baby. طيب. These two have a pass to do what? Break the fast. It's a little further with this group. This group is a little more detailed. They break the fast, tuftirani wa taqdiyani. They break the fast, and they have to make the day up. Tell you what happens, مثلا, because the first group, for lack of better words, the first group has the option, right? They don't have to fast, but they can fast. The first group, the one that's sick, and if you fast, right, and the traveler. This group, they don't have the option of fasting. The woman on her menses doesn't have the option of fasting while she's on her menses. She can't just say, "No, I know I can make it through. I can make it through the day. It's a little rough, but I can still make it through. It's not going to count for it." And the same for the woman that has the postpartum bleed. They don't have the option of fasting anyway. Even though I know I can break it, right? Sometimes sisters say, "I know I can break it, but I'm gonna just push through because it's not that difficult. I would sleep half the day, right? It was an easy day for me, and they think they can just fast anyway." Not for these two. In Samata lam yujzi'ihuma, that it wouldn't count even if they did fast. That it would not count if they did fast. Everybody clear so far? This is one group. Yes, the woman on her menses and the woman who has postpartum. This is one group together. That they have the pass. They have a pass, that we could say, to break the fast that day. They're not even allowed to fast if they felt like they could. And if they did fast anyway, they would still have to make the day up. Tayyib, which is important, brothers. All of these are important because sometimes we go a little, you see somebody eating during the day of Ramadan, you assume that what? Astaghfirullah, sis ain't even fast. Brother ain't fast. Like, you never know. Husnul dhan. If you should have good thoughts of the person, especially the first day, a brother might not have heard that it was Ramadan. A person might not have heard that it was Ramadan. Tayyib. So that second group, they don't have, we say, the option of fasting, even if they wanted to. Tayyib. The third group is also connected or related to the sisters. Al-Thalithu al-Hamilu al-Murdi'. The pregnant woman and the woman who is breastfeeding. The pregnant woman and the woman who is breastfeeding, that they both have the pass to break the fast, is the third group. So the first group had two, the second group had two, the third group has two. The pregnant woman, the woman that's pregnant, and the woman that is breastfeeding. This one has a little more detail. He says, إذا خافتا على أنفسهما أفطرتا وقضتا. If the woman, whether she's pregnant or she's breastfeeding, if she breaks her fast due to the fact that she fears for herself, that she's going to harm herself, right, by fasting, she's going to harm herself. This ain't had nothing to do with the baby. She's pregnant or she's breastfeeding, right? Brothers, if we don't know, if the brothers don't know, if we don't know, brothers, how many people here are married, first of all? Are married, yeah. Raise your hand, brother. Most brothers right here in this room not married. How many people have been married before, but just not? If we don't know, which we should, when women are pregnant, their bodies change. It's not just talk that they're saying, they're trying to get over on you. The body changes. The mental changes. They're not the same people. They're not. It's not a shot at the sisters. It's real. The bodies change. They go through postpartum. But the body, you understand what I'm saying? These are things that this how Allah created them. Brothers have to understand the reality of that. It's real. It's a reality. And in this case, a sister may fear. She may feel herself that she fears that she's going to harm herself. She feels her body getting weak throughout the day, and she feels like she needs to break the fast. Not based on the baby, based on how she feels, right? They said if this is the case for the pregnant woman or the woman who's breastfeeding, they fear for themselves alone, then they break the fast and they make the day up. Tayyib, they break the fast and they make up the day. Tayyib. It says, وَإِنْ خَافَتَا عَلَى وَلَدَيْهِمَا. But if their fear if they break the fast, because not because of them, they fear that the baby's going to be harmed. Which baby? The baby that she's carrying or the baby that she's breastfeeding. So she fears that if she fasts, it's going to be harmful to the baby, to the child. In this case, there are three things she has to do. Three things. She breaks the fast. She has to make the day up. And as he says, وَأَطْعَمَتَهَا عَنْ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا, and that she has to pay or feed a poor person for each day that she breaks the fast due to her fearing for the child. Run it back. In one case, she's breaking the fast because she fears for who? Herself. In the other case, she doesn't fear for herself. She fears for the baby. If she breaks her fast based on somebody else, in this case, the baby, they say in that case, she needs to feed a poor person for every day that she did that. And who pays for that food for the poor person to be fed? The wali. If she's married, her husband. Clear? The wali is responsible in that case. Everybody clear? The pregnant woman has two situations, or the woman that's breastfeeding has two situations where she's allowed to break the fast. Either A, she fears that she's going to harm herself and it's not about the baby, or B, she fears for the baby. If it's about herself, she breaks the fast and she makes up the day. If it's about the baby only, she's fine, but she's worried about the baby. In that case, they say she breaks the fast, she makes the day up, and she feeds a poor person for every day that she does that. But if they both choose to fast anyway, it counts. Of course, not all the ulama agree with the situation of feeding a person for these two, but this is from the fiqh of Imam Ahmed, and other ulama say that no, she doesn't have to feed, or they don't have to feed a person.
You use miskin, so you mean like a poor, like homeless almost person. Like not like somebody that just can't really, like, they ain't had nothing to eat, they ain't had no money to eat that day, but someone who's constantly in that position.
Poor is not necessarily on the street. Okay. Poor people Islamically doesn't mean they have to be like on the street with nowhere to stay. Huh? They don't have to be on the street as we know people to be poor, like, right? Miskin, a person that doesn't have all of their necessities. They don't have everything they need to function in life, right? Which in reality, a lot of people walk around a miskin. A lot of people walk around a miskin. They may not have it. They really are miskin. But we so prideful. We don't want to take it. We don't want nobody to know we miskin. And sometimes the miskin is trying to give to the miskin. He don't even know, or she doesn't know she's miskin, and she wants to give something away. Or he doesn't know he's miskin, he's trying to give something away. When in reality, you might be miskin yourself, right? We might be miskin. So it's not that you have to be in what we have in our brains, like that's a poor person. They don't have a place to stay. No, a person in miskin might have a place to stay, right? They might have a job. It's possible they have a job. That doesn't mean that you have a job that you can't fall under the category of being miskin. If those two, the pregnant woman or the woman who was breastfeeding, if they chose to fast, then it would count for them. It would count for them. But when we see sisters and they're not fasting, it's possible, or brothers, it's possible these people fall into one of these categories.
Question: is there an expiration date for like feeding somebody?
Is there an expiration date for feeding somebody? It's connected to Ramadan. It should be done at least. Say that question again.
Is there a point where you can't do it? Can't make up that day as far as feeding somebody?
Is there a point where you can't make up the day as far as feeding somebody?
Because my understanding, make up the days that you missed or whatever before the next one.
That's coming. That's coming. The tariqah, the way to feed, generally, when a person makes up a day, right? Generally, what you shouldn't do is feed somebody before the day. So, for example, Ramadan starts tomorrow. A person comes and they feed 10 people. They feed 10 people for the first 10 days. They feed people before the day even comes, right? That if a person wants to feed daily, right, they can feed daily. Or if a person does like 10 days go by and then they feed 10 people for those 10 days or something like that, but not to go before the actual day. And there's some room in that, some room in how to feed the people, but you shouldn't go before the day the day of actual fasting. Yes.
So you were saying if the sister don't have a husband, her wali got
the Nawali, yes. The sister's not married, and she breaks the fast for who?
The baby.
She breaks the fast for the baby. She feared for the baby. She didn't fear for herself. Then she feeds a poor person for. Let's just say she did that 7 days out of Ramadan. And the wali would pay for it to feed somebody 7 days out of Ramadan. And that issue, y'all, that all of the scholars of Islam don't agree on, but the author, according to the author, yes.
Blood wali, right? and also that's but she doesn't have a wali at all. Anybody that's just like a convert at the moment.
Allah. Allah.
So the wali of the woman, not the wali of the baby.
what about the child's father?
The wali of the woman.
Because even if they're not married,
Yeah, they divorced.
father.
That's a good question. Allah Alam. Who's responsible for the baby?
And because I remember coming across something that was saying basically like the father of the child, because the child is responsibility, she's missing the account of the child. He has to pay for that.
Let's just say in a perfect situation is what? The husband and wife are married, and that's their child. That's perfect, y'all. That's what we're shooting for. We should not want our kids to be in different houses. It's a problem. It's going to be a problem. That's a problem, and it's going to be a problem. The man is responsible for his child. He's the wali over the child, even if he doesn't live with her. Even if he doesn't live with her, he's still the wali of the child. He's responsible for the child. The wali of the woman, if the wali of the woman has to pay, Allahu A'lam. Allahu A'lam.
But that's what I'm saying. When he mentioned the wali, he referring to the wali of the child.
He didn't specify.
Oh, okay.
But remind me, inshallah. Remind me. Tayyib. The fourth category is al-ajiz an as-sawm. The person who is not able to fast. The person who is not able to fast. Tayyib. If we compare these, the previous three categories, the people were able to fast, like physically. Tayyib. Excuse me, this group is not able to fast for one or two reasons. Either likibrin, because of their elderly age, or limaradin la yurja bur'uhu, or for a sickness that it's not going to be cured. They have a sickness is going to be with them the rest of their lives. That sickness prevents them from fasting. Tayyib. This is the last category, the fourth category. That either A, they're elderly, and if they're elderly this year, then what? Next year, they're going to be older. Not worse, just older. Tayyib. Or the person whose sickness is long-term. It's not like a get over it real quick. I'm going to be over it in the next 6 months. No, they don't see any type of cure for that sickness. Tayyib. What do they do? Says فَإِنَّهُمْ يُطْعِمَ عَنْهُ لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا. That the person, they feed for every day that they missed on Ramadan, that they feed a person. Tayyib. They feed a person. Again, how is the feeding done? That the feeding should be done at least day by day, but not to go before the day. What could possibly happen? Huh? It's possible, possibly. Allah cures them and they're able to fast. This is based on what they know. What they know right now is I'm not going to be able to fast. Right now, I know I'm not going to be able to fast. So this is how they carry on. But what happens if they pay too early and then a day comes when they actually are able to fast? They should fast. If we're able to fast, we should be fasting. طيب. If we're in a situation like this, a person's elderly, they're not able to do it, alhamdulillah, they have an excuse. طيب. Yes.
So what's the ruling on a woman that's pregnant back to back? Like each year she's pregnant or she's had
She can't make the day.
If a woman is pregnant,
Like if she was pregnant 1 year, she made days.
and she didn't make the days up,
Before she had a chance to make the days, like you know, but she can't be responsible for the days that, you know, she couldn't make them in the first year while she was
why couldn't she make them?
like what?
Why couldn't she make her days? The question is, if a woman gets pregnant, so she doesn't fast at Ramadan. So that means after Ramadan is done, after she has the baby, she has to make the days up. Right.
She has until the next Ramadan to make the days up.
Right.
And she gets pregnant again before the next Ramadan.
Tell you, I'm with you. She gets pregnant again before the next Ramadan. Was it time between the two Ramadans? It was time between the two Ramadans. Was it? Tell you. If it's time between the two Ramadan, sisters, we should not delay. Even though you can delay, you have till the next Ramadan. You're gonna put yourself in the jam like this. You should finish the days as quickly as possible, right? Because if not, then the next Ramadan comes, and that's gonna come. The issue is coming up about that person delaying the days.
So I had a question specifically related to me. So a person who was chronically sick, they were chronically sick for years, and then they get better. So they have to go back and make those days up. They're better now. They cancel out.
The days that they were.
For me, it's like I was sick for like 5 years straight. Kidney issues, right? I couldn't fast. I'll be loud. 2019, I got better, get it.
Alhamdulillah.
So would I have to go back and make those days up so I'm better now, or would I have to, or I just let them ride?
Just let them ride. I know. I feel you. No, I feel you. I'm just, you know, I'm not never gonna say just let them ride. I get what you're saying though, but we'll never want to look at it like that. Stuff it never falls off except in the situation where it possibly. The us was that you have to make them up. But if you were diagnosed like that at the time and it was under this, then Allahu Alam. The law here is that you wouldn't have to, but Allah.
I thought I'm doing.
So
Everybody get the question. The person falls under this fourth category. It doesn't look like they're gonna be cured, right? It doesn't look like they're gonna be able to fast anymore. So what do? They feed a person, right? They feed a person. That's what they're supposed to do. They feed a person for each day that they miss. Let's say 5-10 years later, they're better. Are they responsible for those? I would say no, Tom Neiman. I would say a person isn't responsible because they fell under that category at the time. But it's worth checking with somebody more knowledgeable than me. Like Sheikh over here.
question I was gonna say, so falling under that, he would have had to feed someone, correct?
No doubt.
So doesn't that why would he have to go back if he covered
That's how I feel.
the payment cost?
I feel the same way.
You said you didn't make the days up.
No,
You fed them. You fed somebody.
I'm just saying, I'm worried about to have to go back to the days.
Would you have to fast on top of that? I wouldn't think so, but Allah Alam. Check with the shit. Inshallah. طيب. He says, وعلى سائر من أفطر القضاء ولا غير. He says, so anybody else outside of these four categories, if they break the fast, then what a person has to do is what? What happens if you break the fast and you don't have a valid excuse? You have to make it up. It's a sin. It's from the major sins. It's not something light, right? Those four categories are basically the Islamic excuses for a person breaking a fast. A person that's a Muslim that's not fasting during Ramadan, right? Should be in one of those four categories. Should be in one of those four categories. Meaning they have their excuses from one of those four categories. Now, if a person is not fasting outside of that, then apparently, and we wouldn't know by looking at people, y'all. You can't tell if a person has a valid by looking at them, right? Then the person is outside of the realms of a valid excuse.
For the fourth group, what was the correction? How do they rectify that? For the elderly and the person that is prevented.
That they feed a person for each day. Yes. طيب. So anybody who breaks the fast without the excuse. طيب. Then when they do what? Anybody outside of those four. Those four are valid excuses. All they have to do is make the day up. And anybody outside of that, then they have to also make the day up. طيب. When we if a person breaks the fast, the only time something else is attached to it is if a person breaks the fast with intercourse, sex. طيب. In this case, to make it up is a little more serious and severe, and it takes a little more to fix it. If we can use that word. In order to fix that day, it takes a little more. طيب. Meaning it takes more than just making the day up. If a person does what? A person has sex during the day of Ramadan. He says, in this case, إلا من أفطر بجماع في فرج فإنه يقضي. Number one, a person has intercourse sex during the day of Ramadan. Number one, that they have to do what? Make the day up. And number two, they have to pay a kafara. The kafara is the expiation, which is in the sequential order like this. He says, number one, they make the day up. وَيُطِقْ رَقَبَةً. And then they have to also, with making the day up, along with number one thing is that is what? Breaking the fast on the day wrong. It's a major sin. It's a major sin that needs a person has to make tawbah. A person has to repent. It ain't just, I just broke it. I'm going to just, you know what I'm saying? Not like that. I'm going to let this one ride. But you know how we talk. No. No. It's a major sin. It's from the kaba'ir. That a person has to seek Allah's forgiveness for doing it, for breaking the fast without a valid excuse. طيب. On top of that, if it was done with sex and intercourse during the daytime, طيب, it says, then that person also, on top of that, has to pay a kafara, expiation. They have to pay a penalty on top of that. What's the penalty? Either A, which we don't fall into, they have to free a slave. We don't have any slaves to free, right? But if a person has slaves to free, it's not optional. The order is not optional. They would have to free a slave. We don't have any slaves to free. He says, فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ فَصِيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. If a person doesn't have any slaves to free, then what do they have to do in order to fix that one day? That one day has to be fixed by fasting 2 consecutive months. 2 months straight. Not I'm going to do 2 days here. I'm going to do a week here. No. The person who breaks the fast with sex during the day of Ramadan, that the penalty is fasting. If they don't have a slave, fasting 2 months straight. How long is 2 months? How many days at the least?
60 days.
Huh? Sahih. What's the least amount of days? 58. You with me? At the least, they have to fast 50, because we're going by the Islamic calendar. Shahrain, when it says 2 months, not months, no, 2 months. Everything goes back to the calendar. Our calendar at the least is going to be 58 days. It could be 60. It could be 58, 59, depending on. We're not taking the least number. We're going to go by the moon again, right? All the ruins are going to be connected to the moon. You with me? But we know what we do know from the rip is going to be at least 58 days, because 2 months Islamically is going to come out to 58 days at least. But it might be 59 and it could be 60.
If you travel with your wife, you have to fast.
If you what?
You have to fast sex.
I ain't hear you. I'm sorry.
If you're traveling with your wife.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, I'm saying, have sex during the time you travel.
MashaAllah, that's a good question. If you're traveling with your wife, do you have to refrain from having sex? Let's look at it. Is the traveler allowed to break fast? No. Huh? The traveler can break fast, right? Now the question is, are you fasting while you traveling, or no? And that's gonna come. But the traveler can break the fast anyway. You with me? So yeah. That's the second step. But what if a person, what if they're not able to fast 2 months straight? Meaning, not able to fast, meaning what? Not as difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. 30 days was hard. Now you got to do 58, at least 58, maybe 60. A person's not able, like what? Sickness, health-wise, age, they're not able to fast. That don't mean, y'all, it doesn't mean that I could just knock out 58 days. Those are 58, 2 months straight. If a person is not able to fast, right, in that case, he says, in And if a person's not able, then they will feed 60 poor people, as we say. Yes. It should be consecutive. Inshallah.
So that's about 2 months along with making up that day.
No doubt. Along with making up that day that they broke with sex, they have to fast 2 months, consecutive months. With the day for Ramadan, yes. With the day for Ramadan. That is a kafara that I saw a brother, he had to make a kafara like that before. Because he accidentally killed somebody. It was an accidental killing. He hit somebody in a car, one of the street workers. He lived in Jeddah, and he hit one of the workers that cleaned the streets, and the guy died. He went to court, and it wasn't intentional. He didn't intentionally kill him. He didn't intentionally run him over. And the sentence was he had to fast 2 months straight. And how does a person know, y'all? How does a person know if a person really did they 2 months straight? Who Allah knows though. Allah knows. This is deen. Allah knows if a person paid what they owe. That's owed. We owe that. It's going to be on our necks if we don't do it. So the brother used to come to class. He was always real energetic. He started coming to class like every day. He was like falling asleep and tired. I'm like, you cool? He said, yeah, I'm all right. Then he told me one day, he said, I had to fast 2 months. I'm like, what happened? He said he hit a guy by accident and killed him. Allah yarhamu. Tayyib. Yes.
So they got to make the expiation and fast for 60 days, but then they miss one of those days where they got to fast for 60 consecutive days.
If they miss what?
They miss a day. Right? They fasted for some reason, or they make another mistake and they miss a day.
What you mean make another mistake? I don't know.
I'm saying like they didn't fast, didn't have no reason. They broke the fast for no reason.
They gotta restart.
Yeah, restart.
Allah.
That's what I'm trying to ask.
Allah.
They gotta restart.
I'm not sure. Allah. But the penalty, honestly, from what's clear is the kafara is 2 consecutive months. 2 consecutive months, no days off. Meaning no days off. So what's apparent is that it wouldn't count, but Allah. It's dangerous either way. Either way is dangerous. So the person either frees a slave, they have to fast 2 months. If they're not able to fast, they have to feed 60 people. What if they're not able to feed 60 people? They don't even have to do that. They don't have any slaves to free. They don't have any, they can't fast 2 months. They don't have money to feed 60 people. In that case, it just drops off. The penalty drops off. If he doesn't have that, he literally can't do anything, then the penalty is dropped from the person. Even though it was still from the major sins. The person still needs to seek Allah's forgiveness and make tawbah. Tayyib. Now he goes, which is connected to paying the kafara also, the penalty. The kafara is the penalty. So if I say kafara, that's the penalty. What's the penalty? The first thing is to free a slave. That's the penalty, free a slave. And then if a person doesn't have slaves to free, then fast 2 consecutive months. If a person is not able to fast 2 consecutive months because of what? Not because it's difficult. They're not able to. Like their body physically, they have a sickness, they're old, they're not able to fast 2 months. In that case, they feed 60 people, 60 poor people. Right? What if a person doesn't have money to feed people like that? And in that case, it drops off. All with that a person still makes tawbah and seeks Allah's forgiveness for breaking the fast without a valid excuse. طيب فإن جامع ولم يكفر حتى جامع ثانية فكفارة واحدة. It's possible a person had intercourse with their wife, or the wife they had intercourse with their husband, whatever the case may be, during the daytime, which means they have to do what? Make the day up and let's just say pay the penalty, pay the kafara, right? Based on whatever situation they fall, based on what they're able to do from that. طيب. What happens if a person, the husband and the wife, they have intercourse during the day, طيب. They didn't pay the penalty. Let's just say, for example, let's just say they had slaves to free. So that means they did a kafal, they had intercourse on the day, and what was they supposed to do? Free a slave. They didn't free a slave. They didn't pay the kafal or anything. They didn't start fat. They didn't do anything. And then later on in the day, they had intercourse again. How many kafalas do they owe? A lot. One. There you go. Right? The fast was already broken. They didn't pay the kafala. Right? So let's just say Methalan, after Dhuhr, they had intercourse, they fell asleep and woke up after Asr, had intercourse again and never paid the kafala. Right? That would be one slave. Right? That would count as one. Clear? وإن كفر ثم جامع فكفر ثانية فكفارة ثانية. But if it was the opposite, right? They had intercourse and then after that, they made tawbah to Allah in that day. After Dhuhr, they went and they freed a slave. Right? They paid the kafara. They went back home, fell asleep, right? Woke up and had intercourse again in the same day. In this case, how many? They have to go free another slave. What just happened? And the first time, the first situation, they never paid the kafara. They never paid the penalty. They did the same sin twice and never paid the penalty. So they say that it's stuck on one penalty. In the second case, they sinned. They broke the fast with sex on the day of Ramadan. Then they went and paid the penalty. Free their neck, it's off them, right? Clear? Even though it was a major sin, they said astaghfirullah tubu ilayh. They went, they freed the slave, right? They got it off of their neck. They still got to make the day up. They came back home and had sex again. Everybody clear? That means they have to pay another penalty, another kafara. So the difference is, if they never paid it, it's one thing. But if they paid it and it's in the same day, then they're two different situations. Yeah.
But aren't they only breaking? Right? There's only one day of the fast.
So hey, they already broke the fast. Fast is broken.
So how you breaking the fast twice? How do you break the fast twice?
You can't. So some other men might argue. Some might argue, but a lot of things are, as they say, out of respect for the month. So some only a couple of rulings in this chapter, they say out of respect for the month. And that's going to come, inshallah. Yes.
So let's say, for example, you put yourself under the kafara right after Fajr.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you immediately go pay it. If
Yes.
you have the ability, does that mean, based off of what you said about paying it twice, does that mean you have to finish that day of fasting after you pay the kafara?
Jay, everybody get the question? So what y'all just said, the fast is already broken. And this is kind of like what they say when a person breaks the fast. For example, say a person broke their fast intentionally. They said, I'm hungry, I'm just going to break the fast. Right? Or a person just is not fasting, whatever the case may be, they break the fast. Should the person still fast the rest of the day? Even though they got to make the day up. When the fast is broken, does a person still fast the rest of the day?
Respect to the month.
Yes, it falls under this. They say even if you broke your fast, they say out of respect for the time and the month and the days of Ramadan, that a person should still do imsak, that a person still should stay away from everything that will break the fast, even though you already got to make that day up. Clear? Of course, not all say that, but the author is under that opinion that if a person, even though your fast is broken, that you should still make imsak of the things that break the fast on the day of Ramadan, even if you got to make that day up. So, methalan, for example, I'm traveling, and I'm not fasting when I'm traveling, right? I chose to break my fast while I'm traveling. Can I do that?
No.
That's permissible travel, right? I'm traveling, I come back home, and it's a day I land at Dhuhr of Ramadan. Am I fasting?
No. I'm
not fasting. I already broke my fast. In that case, they say that you should still make imsak. You still shouldn't do the things that break the fast. Why? Ihtiram, out of respect for the time and the month. And this was some scholars argued that there's no need for that, like you're saying, that it's already broken. Some scholars argued it. Mm-hmm.
Did you mention if you break fast via intercourse unintentional?
Who? Unintentional intercourse? Some of the they discuss it. Many of the ulama say that the man, there is no unintentional intercourse for the man.
No, like you wasn't just like you eat.
No. It takes a little more for intercourse. You don't just, you know what I'm saying? They used to say, they say for the man, right? For the woman, maybe. For the woman, no, the woman may get an excuse in that area. As far as, even if she doesn't, even possibly that's an extreme case though. Rape is an extreme case. Just the nature of men and women in intercourse. A man, it takes more for a man to have intercourse than it takes for a woman, than a woman. Is that clear or not? Oh yeah. It takes more for a man. A man, for example, has to be erect. Right? A woman doesn't. So it's a buildup. It's a buildup. It's time for a person to gather themselves. Yeah, a person has to be, they want that. And this is how the ulama discuss it. Well, a woman doesn't need an erection for intercourse. Clear? The difference? From that bad. We're not talking about anything beyond that. From that, looking at it like that, it takes more for a man. No, it doesn't take more for a man? Allah, inshallah.
That's the call to author, though, right?
Yeah, that's what we're going by. We only go by. We're not going. Whatever we do is the call of the author, y'all. Call of the author. It doesn't mean that, it's ijma on the issue of things like that. But Ibn Qudamah, rahimahullah, is not, I don't want to say it like that, but he's not like regular. It's not like a regular scholar. He's one of the, rahimahullah, he's a serious, his level Islamically, mashallah, his scholarship is on a high level of Islam. And it's important to understand these books, they base things on their time period and what's known amongst them in their time period, right? And the medicines in their time period and the way things are cured during their time period. You could look now, 700 years later, and say, "No, that sounds crazy." Yeah, it sounds crazy 700 years later. It didn't sound crazy then, right? We look now, right now, we look at things 20 years ago and say that was crazy, right? We look at ourselves 20 years ago and critique ourselves 20 years ago and say that was crazy. It's 700 years ago, right? So he says, وَكُلُّ مَنْ لَزِمَهُ الْإِمْسَاكُ فِي رَمَضَانَ فَجَامَعَ فَعَلَيْهِ كَفَّارَةٌ. He says, so everybody who is supposed to refrain from eating and drinking and things during Ramadan, if they have intercourse on the day, then they have to pay the kafara. They have to pay the penalty. And the penalty is in order. What's the first thing? A slave, which we don't have. So it goes right to fasting 2 consecutive months, which is at least 58 days on the Islamic calendar. And if they can't do that, they feed 60 poor people. And if they don't have it to feed, then it drops off of them. Even though it was a major sin, and they have to make tawbah and repent to Allah. طيب. And now he says, ومن أخر القضاء لأذر حتى أدركه رمضان آخر فليس عليه غيره. He said, whoever delays making up the day, men or women, person has a day to make up for Ramadan or days. They delayed making up their days with an excuse. It's possible they have an excuse for not making up their days. Everybody with me? Right now, what are the excuses? All of those 4 categories are the excuses. Clear? Those 4 categories are the excuses. طيب. من أخر القضاء, whoever doesn't make up the day, لأذر, and they have an excuse for not making up the day. And then they haven't made up the day until the next Ramadan comes. Right? فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ غَيْرُهُ. Then what is on them to make up that day? Meaning they don't have to pay a kafara. They don't have to pay anything. They had what? They had an excuse for delaying until the next Ramadan. Everybody clear? They delayed making up their days until the next Ramadan. So if you travel, you choose to break your fast, right? you have until the next Ramadan to make it up. Before, not when Ramadan enters, before the next Ramadan. Like, you shouldn't wait that long, because like sisters do. Sisters know they wait. Sisters on a miss, she got to make up 6 or 7 days. She wait until 9 days before Ramadan to try to make up all the days. You know what I'm saying? When you got all year to space them out. But some people like to wait until the shorter days, right? So you got all year. Ramadan is 1 month out of the year. You got all year. A person waits until the following Ramadan with no valid excuse. I'm sorry, with a valid excuse. With a valid excuse, all they have to do is make it the day. So then, of course, he goes to وَإِنْ فَرَّطَ. What if they didn't have an excuse? They just didn't do it. They just didn't make up the days that they owed on Ramadan. He says, أَطْعَمَ مَعَ الْقَضَاءِ لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا. Then the days that they make up, they feed a poor person along with making up the day. Along with making up the day. Clear? 2 separate situations. Either A, I have a valid excuse for delaying, not making my days up, or I don't. If I have a valid reason for delaying my days that I have to make up during Ramadan and the next Ramadan comes, all I have to do is make that day up. If I don't have a valid excuse and I have to make the day up and feed a poor person, along with making tawbah, along with seeking Allah's forgiveness for not having a valid excuse for doing that obligatory worship. Every day of Ramadan is a day of worship, obligatory. If we miss it, we need a valid excuse to miss it. And if you have a valid excuse, then it's not sinful. But if a person misses a day without a valid excuse, then it's a sinful, that's a sinful act. طيب. He says, وَإِن تَرَكَ الْقَضَاء حَتَّى مَاتَ لِعُذْرٍ فَلَا شَيْءَ عَلَيْهِ. And this is the end of this section. He says, for if a person doesn't make up the day, they don't make up the day, but they had an excuse for not making up the day, right? They had an excuse for not making up the day. And they died before they got to make the day up. They died before they got to make the day up. So they were supposed to do what? They were supposed to be making up the day that they missed on Ramadan. They say, you know what? I got till the next Ramadan. I'm going to wait until January. I'm going to wait till like January, December, January. The days are short, right? I'm going to wait till the days are short. And they die before January comes. I sure did. Look, that's supposed to catch that. They die before January comes. Why did they delay until January? For shorter days. Let's say, for example, we come back to the question. She's pregnant. She's pregnant. So after Ramadan, she didn't make up her days. Right? Does she have an excuse? Does a pregnant woman have an excuse not to fast? She has an excuse not to fast. So she's not fasting. And she dies before she makes up her day. Right? He says, فَلَا شَعَلَيْهِ. Then there's nothing on her. There's nothing on anybody. It's just, alhamdulillah. That's how it went. Clear? They died before they got to make the day up. And they had an excuse for delaying this, for delaying not the salah, for delaying the making the day up. And of course, the flip side of the coin. وَإِنْ كَانَ لِغَيْرِ عُذْرٍ. But if they were delaying making up the days with no excuse, right? What are our excuses? Those categories we spoke about. Is it an excuse? Is it an excuse Islamically to say I'm waiting until December when the days are shorter? That's not an excuse. Can a person do that? Yes, they can do that. Is that an excuse for you not fasting? You should make the fast the days as close as possible. It's not a sin if a person does it before the next Ramadan. But what we do is we put ourselves in these type of situations. Now a person, they delayed it without a valid excuse. Tayyib says, then someone feeds on their behalf for each day they had to make up. Because the person's dead. Everybody with me? They died. They died without an excuse. They were delaying days and then they died. They didn't get to make the days up. He says that someone should be fed for each day that they owed. Each day that was owed, a poor person should be fed to cover for that person missing those days. Clear? The sections, you got to categorize them off because it's categorized, y'all. And if you put one person in the other category, the ruling is not the same. That's why questions are the wording of questions is very, very specific. One thing in a question could change the answer. He says lastly, إلا أن يكون الصوم منظورا فإنه يصام عنه وكذلك وكل نذر طاعة وكذلك كل نذر طاعة. He says, if that fast was not a fast from Ramadan, right? But it was a fast of another. So a person, if we know, another is when a person makes something obligatory on themselves, right? So a person says methalan, for example. A person says for methalan, they swear by Allah. They make another by Allah that if I get this job, I'm gonna fast 3 days for the next 6 months. I'm gonna fast 3 days for the next 6 months if Allah give me this job. Is fasting 3 days every month obligatory? Is fasting a 3 days every month obligatory? No. Fasting 3 months is not obligatory, right, for the next 6 months. But when a person makes another like that, if Allah gives me this job, I swear by Allah, I'm gonna fast for the next 6 months. For the next 6 months, I'm gonna fast 3 days every month for the next 6 months. And then he gets the job or she gets the job, those days become obligatory at that point. Clear? That's why they say you got to be careful what you ask for. All right? If Allah send me a good, righteous, nice, good sister, good old brother, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand and pray Qiyam al-Layl at least twice a week. And then Allah gives you, it becomes obligatory. I mean, a person made it obligatory on themselves. It wasn't obligatory before that. Tell you, a person does the same thing, but they say, I'm going to fast. If Allah gives me this, if Allah bless me with a son, or Allah bless me with a daughter, I'm going to fast for 2 weeks straight. As soon as the child is born, I'm going to fast 2 weeks straight. If that happens and they have a child, then those 2 weeks of straight up fasting become obligatory. Everybody clear? Tell you, when a person takes that type of fast, they made it, it's called another, right? They do that and then they die before they're able to fulfill the fast. Everybody get the idea now? It's not like the other one. They say in this case, that a person should fast for him or for her. That a person should fast for him or fast for her on their behalf. Is that clear? You got to separate the differences of the fast. That fast is for the nether that a person takes.
Placing another on yourself, like, is that like makruh, or is it something that's okay in the religion?
Well, it depends. Another different types. Yeah, it's different types of they break down into different categories. Some of them are, but not all of them. Not all of them.
Let's say you have a person dies while they have a fast to make up. Is it a difference between this person died and he had no intention on making it up or rectifying it in any way, and a person who intended on making it up and then he died?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The person, let's say we had one situation where a person died and he had a fast to make up, but he didn't intend on making it up. He knew he had the fast to make up, but he didn't intend on making it up.
Okay.
It was clear. And another person who intended on making it up, but he died before he was able to. Is it a difference? Like, let's say a person comes and they make up the fast for both people after they die. Does the person who didn't intend on making it up still get rewarded?
How do you know if they don't intend to do it? Oh, somebody comes out and tells you that they're not. Well, we have to look at it. Number one, who are we fasting for? If we fast for somebody, which fast are we fasting for? Huh? No, what type of fast are we fasting on behalf of somebody? You gotta be more specific than that. La. If we're fasting for a person, like we just spoke about, when are we fasting for somebody on somebody's behalf? Which fast are we covering for them? Huh? The ish? The nether. That a person took an oath That's the one you fast for them, not for Ramadan.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
You with me? So we're not, if a person dies, then they said what? They said you feed somebody. If they died, they didn't finish their Ramadan fast. But if a person made an oath, they say, right, they made the oath, if I get this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to fast, I'm going to do this for Allah. And then they die, right, before they get to make it up. In that case, we fast on their behalf. Now, you're saying that the person who owed the fast because Allah gave him that job, he turned around or she turned around and said, I'm not going to fast anyway. That's what you're saying? And that's what they told you?
Yeah.
Tell you, if they do that, then number one is what? It's a sin, number one. And if they die, can you fast on their behalf?
No.
Huh? You can still fast on their behalf. They're going to need it. No doubt. They're going to need it. That's making an oath like that. That's why you got to be careful. Making an oath like that, they're going to need it. They're going to need it. Allahu Alam. And this is the call of Ibn Abbas. And a man came and asked him about that. And he said, for the another, that a person should fast on behalf of the person. And for the person who missed the Ramadan fast, that a person should feed a person.
Taking witnesses, or is it something?
No, it don't have to be no witnesses. You know, you sit back, you might be having a conversation. People have conversations. I'm telling you, like, listen, if I get this, you know how we get. Allah, y'all. If Allah give me this, then that's what I'm doing. I do 2 weeks. Right? Then Allah give it to him. In the beginning, whatever it wasn't obligatory on him, right? It wasn't obligatory on him, but the nether makes it obligatory. A person makes something obligatory on themselves that wasn't originally obligatory on them.
It don't have to be about fast. You can like, if I get this stimmy, I'm gonna get it finished the last shit right here.
Say that again.
I get the stimmy next week.
I get the stimulus check. I'm gonna do what?
You don't have to eat necessarily fast. But it could be something that you want to do. You don't have to be fast.
Yeah. No, nothing. For example, I'm trying to get something. Don't matter what it is. I'm trying to get a job. I'm trying to get married. I want to have kids. I want to travel to a certain place. Whatever. It's not I'll say, for example, if Allah gives me that, I'm going to do this from worship.
Okay.
I'm going to do this. If Allah gives me that, I swear, I'm going to do this.
Okay.
I'm praying Qiyam al-Layl for a month straight, 30 days straight. I'm praying Qiyam al-Layl. If Allah give me that, I'll do it. It'll be worth it. You know how we talk. We hype.
It don't have to be nothing necessarily tied to 5 pillars.
No. No. Right? Anything? And then Allah gives it to him. Before that, it wasn't obligatory to pray 30 days straight at night, but you made it obligatory on yourself. And now that's, as we say, that's on the person's neck until they do it. So if they die before they get to fulfill it, then the person should try to cover it for them. Whatever they say they're going to do.
And if they pass, you have to do that.
You don't have to do it, but you should. Yeah.
Whatever they say.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to repeat the question, but put more detail in it. Now, let's say a person, his wife is pregnant, and they don't know what they're having yet. So he makes another saying, oh Lord, if you give me a girl, or if you give me a boy, I'm going to do such and such. Is something like that sinful?
Is what sinful?
The another that he placed on himself.
Is it sin? What's the question? Is the question about making another, or the question about making that specific?
Making that specific.
What would be the sin in it? No, I want to know what you're thinking. Like, the nether is making another. If you're talking about making an oath in itself, is different categories of it. If you're talking about the nether, are you talking about the sin of a boy or a girl child? Like, I don't know any sin to be on,
Because there's many different companions that speak on, asking Allah, for a specific gender, and saying rather you should just ask that Allah make the child righteous.
So hey. Yeah, but that wouldn't, even if a person, that wouldn't necessarily put it in the category of being sinful. It would be in the category of being what? Makruh. Dislike. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a sin to specify, but possibly dislike to, just want righteous, healthy children. If it's a boy, alhamdulillah. If it's a girl, alhamdulillah.
Where can you find different categories of another?
Aqidah. Kitab al-Tawheed has it. Sheikh Salih al-Sheikh broke it down real good. MashaAllah. Allah fellow. He did a real, actually, maybe even his Sharh al-Thalath al-Usul also. It's very detailed. And from the smaller books. But we'll stop there, inshallah. Next week, Bab Ma Yufsid al-Sawm. The chapter of the things that break the fast next week. The things that break the fast. Yes. Next week is going to be at after Maghrib. Same time, but it'll be after Maghrib.
Back to the sickness. Back to the sickness where it's not you fasting doesn't necessarily harm you, but it just prolongs your sickness. It prolongs you getting better. It's just somebody's sick, you know. Some remedy would be to drink tea or orange juice, whatever. But
I'm gonna let you answer. The category is the sickness. Number one, what are these 4 categories? Huh? No. What do the 4 categories cover? The people who what? Have a valid excuse to break the fast. These people are allowed to break the fast. It says the first one, the sick person that will be harmed by fasting. The sick person that will be harmed if they fast. They can what? They can break. Do they have to break the fast? They don't have to break the fast. They can fast if they want to fast. But if they feel like it's going to harm them, they can break the fast. It's just like that's what it is. That's how it is. If you feel like it's harming, you can break the fast. And Allah knows if a person is, Allah knows. If it feels like it's going to harm a person, you feel like you need to break the fast, you break the fast. That's between you and Allah. You still got to make the day up. Still have to make the day up. And you got to be serious because breaking the fast without valid excuses from the major sins.
So what happens if somebody knows that by them fasting they're harming themselves and they still choose to fast and they end up dying?
If a person knows that it's going to harm them and they choose to fast anyway, and then they end up dying, yo, that's that ain't just, oh man. This is a you got tell you. We number one, of course, we know it's different levels of sicknesses. Tell you. Nobody, I don't think anybody self-examines themselves, like if you're self-diagnosis on serious sicknesses. Serious sicknesses, you usually go to the doctor when it's serious, right? If you go to the doctor, right, which in that case, the imam of the masjid, y'all, is not going to be able to, if he's not a medical doctor, he's not going to be able to really, you know what I'm saying? He's going to tell you, you know, you need to get medical advice. Person come to me and ask me, well, I got this disease, can I fast? I don't know what that disease is and the effects of you fasting with that disease. So I can't tell you anything, but you need to go see a doctor and they can discuss that with you. A regular cold, I'm sneezing, you know what I'm saying? I got the flu. Everybody know the flu is about a week. Those things like that. People do die from the flu, y'all. But it's not like, a lot of people die from the flu, but it's not like it's a normal, like, you get the flu, you dead type of thing, right? And those type of things, then it's a norm. That's a normal sickness that a person doesn't really, if it's a heavy sickness, then a person needs to go to the doctor and get clearance to fast. If it's heavy like that. If it's a regular sickness, you got the sniffles, you get a little head cold, a person generally knows how to deal with those. If they die, I wouldn't say that it's a sin if it was a normal situation. But if it's a serious disease that everybody knows, that's not a disease you treat in the house, and then they go and do that, that might be a different case. You with me? Depending on the level of the sickness.
So if the doctor told me you have to do something,
you know. Yeah, if they get medical advice and that's what the doctor's advising with, and the issue of that doctor himself or herself is an issue in itself. What are the characteristics of that doctor? Any doctor tell you that? It should be a Muslim. The Muslim, right? The doctor have to be Muslim. The doctor should be you with me? Point being that the doctor is the one who's going to give that call. So if a person came and asked the imam, if the imam is not, or the sheikh, whoever, if he's not a medical, he doesn't know the effects of that sickness, more than likely he's not going to give an answer. He's going to say, you need to get medical advice. Yes.
One more question. So, tying back to breaking the fast and making up being simple. So, what if, like attention is coming into play as far as you start off with fast and then you get that attention to eat. So, you be simple and once you make that attention to, okay, I'm going to eat, you break it fast. So, does that count as being simple as well? Or does it actually you physically have to eat? I know you break it fast and you intend to do it. Does it count as actual sin? You didn't carry out the action yet. You know what I'm saying?
It depends. That's going to come next week, but it depends on why a person's breaking their fast. I might have a valid reason to break my fast. If I have a valid reason to break my fast, it's not sinful.
Okay.
You with me? You hear what I'm saying? This I'm going to tell y'all. We're going to stop here. There are a lot of questions you can ask. It's a million questions to ask y'all. These books are written this way so that basically you get the answer pretty much, not 100%, by process of elimination. So it's worded like that because those 4 categories are worded like that because these are the people. If they don't fit that, then they don't take the same ruling. You with me? If they don't fit the, that's why it says the sick person who feels that they will be harmed, they're going to be harmed by fasting. You understand? In that case, if that's how they feel, what about the sick person who doesn't feel like they're going to be harmed by fasting? They should be fasting, right? Runny nose, you sick. If somebody knows running, right? You say, dang, you sick. We assume they're just sick. Somebody sneezes 3 times straight, you sick. It doesn't mean it's a now everything's you can't even sneeze nowadays. People be like, yo. But it's different levels of being sick. So if it doesn't fit that category, you can't apply that rule to it. That's how they do it. That's why it says the traveler that is allowed to short. So what about the traveler that's not allowed to short? They don't fall into that category. You understand what I'm saying? So the words are very specific intentionally to keep it very direct. If they don't fit the category, then they don't take, not that there's no ruling for them, but it's not that ruling. It may be something else. They don't fit in there. Yeah, they don't fit in that category. Saajid, we'll stop there, inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.